This is Team Hard Life Captain Alberto Zertuche bringing you another great video. After much self-deliberation, I have always wanted to take our knowledge to the next level, and the way to do it is for us to be able to share that knowledge in the right way. Like I started with our original videos of Knot Tying 101. The reason I went there is because, like I said, buying tackle in all shapes and forms is great, but not being able to put together can be a real hindrance. Now, one of the major questions that has been going back and forth for several decades, literally several decades, every fishing forum that you go on, you'll see it at least once, twice, or 3 times a day, how to tie braid to a spool. The main way it has always been done was putting monofilament on your spool and then tying your braid to your monofilament, or using tape to your spool and then tying your braid over that. However, I've seen where tying monofilaments to your spool to tie your braid on will still stretch. Mono stretches, that's what it does. Well, in that sense, that stretch keeps going through the rest of the spool of braid, and you'll get this snake-like effect in your braid. I know y'all have seen that and always thought, well, man, I did it because maybe the braid wasn't too tight or this and that. Actually, it's because the mono is stretching. Get any piece of monofilament, and let's do this. Here's some 50-pound test, and it's Suffolk Superior, which is a very, very good line to use. We've used it for many years on our spools and stuff like that. All right, so just in this, you'll see right there, I got a rubber band effect, and that's just by hand right here. Obviously, I'm not going to pull too crazy hard because the mono will cut into my hand. But if you can see, I'm getting stretch on it just from this little bit of area. Now imagine you have a 5 or 6 foot piece on there, you're going to get that much more stretch. Well, mono will just continue to stretch because that much pressure is being put on the spool from the center. You'll see where salt water has gone all the way to the center of the spool, where the tape is, and actually begin to corrode the spool from the inside out. You don't see it until you finally down spool the reel, and that's what's happening. Now, we got into that mindset of trying to figure out a way to keep this snake-like effect of your braid from happening. One was maintaining line capacity on your reel. 2 was to keep corrosion from building up in the center of your spool like that. So we got to thinking, okay, well, let's develop a knot that can do that. Well, I sat there many hours trying to figure out a way to do it. So with all that thinking that I put into it, I figured out that it wasn't just one knot will make it work. I had to create several or use several different angles to make this work. One was to keep tension on the line as the line is being pulled off the spool. 2, to grip the spool so that way it doesn't slip. But in 3, the third one is the major one. As metals heat up, they begin to expand. And as they contract, when they cool, they leave a small gap. So how do you get a knot to allow it to open so it doesn't break, but then close when there's added pressure? You need a knot that is able to move up and down the line without it breaking. That's where I came up with this idea. And so that was my breakthrough. I had to figure out those 3 things, put them together into my knot. So I was getting away from my 12-aughts to 2-speed reels because I got tired of pulling in the weight when I didn't catch anything. Yes, I catch a lot of fish now, but I paid a lot of time of not catching anything or having a lot of runs and all the tribulation of being a fisherman of hit and miss, and that's why it's called fishing. Now, with going into 2-speed reels, we needed line capacity. And using straight mono, you cannot have line capacity and strength while using monofilament. Now, you can have line capacity and strength, but your abrasion resistance would go down. So what we had to do was find a fine line between using braid and mono on the reel at that time, because we were using a solid braid. A solid braid is what pretty much dominated the market for a very, very long time. It's a braid that you have to tie knots. When it gets cut off, you have to tie a knot. So you'll have some kind of bump in your line where your knot has been. Now, I've created hollow cores. Hollow cores are now my true way, and especially for my team and for the people and customers we deal with, is the real way to save money and also be able to increase the life of your line. For one, the Jerry Brown line that we prefer, now granted that's just us, we're just passing on the knowledge. You may not all agree, that's fine. But for us and where we do and where we fish, hollow core, if y'all don't know, is this. See, this is actually 300-pound test. And what I've done is I've towed the line back in on itself. Right here, I'm creating the inverse loop so that way I can create my end of the line knot. In doing this, you got to be careful when packing it down here, because it gets too tight and it won't allow you to continue doing it. The only bad thing about big heavy lines like this, you got to work them a little slower than the smaller lines. But as you can tell, there you go, it's starting to disappear. Now what I've done is, like I said, I towed in my center of line, and now my tag end is over here. This is the beauty of hollow core. Now what I'll do is I'll tow this end of the knot into my hollow core back the other way with my loop needle. However, that's another class. So now that I've showed you that, the difference between a hollow core and a solid, I want to introduce you to my next outline on knots. And what it's going to be called is how to tie your braids to your spool. There's always a bunch of different ideas out there on how to do it. This is the way we do it, and this is how we have learned to get, one, increase line capacity on your reel, two, no more slippage, three, which means no more slippage, you got no more of the snake-like effect on your reel. And in doing that, we've also been able to protect the center of the reel because it never gets wet. All right, now our first one would be a solid braid to the spool. Within the solid braid, you have a bimini, or 10 wraps, and a uni knot. For those that already know how to tie those, well then you should be able to figure out just using that. Now granted, I am going to make a video on that and show you how to do it if you don't know how to tie these knots. The other way is a bimini, 10 wraps, and inside the loop. So as you take that bimini loop through your arbor, when it comes out on the other end, instead of tying it to your braid, you'll send your whole spool through it, and that's a good way to also finish off the knot. It's faster that way, and it does work. Now, number two is the hollow core braids. You can do a bimini, your 10 wraps, and a uni, similar to your solid braid. So now, you'll also have a bimini, your 10 wraps in the loop, similar to your solid braid as well. Instead of tying it back on itself, you can actually loop your braid through it and it'll lock it down the same way. Then we have our actual hollow core splice, or 10 wraps in loop, which these are similar, except now we're hollow core splicing versus tying an actual bimini. With the hollow core splice, I can actually disassemble the knot without anything being tied. Once you tie knots, you're not getting those knots out. Okay, so that's just saving the best for last right here. And these two, and actually the loop one is my favorite. This one right here is the one where I can get down to the spool, I can do everything very, very quickly, and it's very effective. So this is going to create a lot of buzz within the fishing communities. A lot of people have kept similar knots like this a secret, and or they have shared it. Me and our customers have come in and they see it firsthand. We'll keep the knot loose on the spool, and then we'll engage the drive on our spooling machine, and you'll actually see the knot start to work the way it's supposed to. So again, this is Team Hard Life Captain, bringing you another outline of the next few videos we got going that are truly going to open your mind to how to start spool your reels when you're using braid. This is going to be the ultimate video you're going to want to watch, so stay tuned. We got a lot coming.